We have a lot to go over, a ton of good news coming out this week from the game we all love. We just need it in the game. Today, though, we have a lot of need-to-know information. We have the weapon balance preview, and going forward, I do plan to do a couple videos on this leading up to Season 22 on this topic and others, so let's get it. We first look at some charts. Long and short, pre and post patch is shown here, and it shows some things we knew. Pulse rifle usage, very strong at times. Hand cannon usage is strong, although that's mostly just a player pick because they feel really good to players, not necessarily the best. We have SMGs. Of course, Immortal is leading the pack, not just leading, in its own universe. Things settled, but now we have a massive shakeup, among other things. The weapon balance changes, double specials getting tuned. There was a bug that allowed double special to generate heavy ammo at a higher than normal rate, so they're changing it to where PvE kills with 2 specials equipped now generate heavy ammo at the same rate as a double primary loadout. A lot are going to get upset at this. I mean, when I run double special, it involves a GL or a trace or both, and hopefully the ammo economy for those specials isn't bugged now or works pretty good. Reticles, replace the perk active hipfire reticle element. The new one should work better at different field of view settings. Added perk indicator for symmetry. Grand overture, charge meter, moved further down the screen. Cool. Zoom and damage fall off tuning. So there's much more here. Again, I do plan to cover in a video tomorrow or the next day. Essentially, they're normalizing range in that mid-range, reducing weapon variance between optimal engagement ranges of auto rifles, hand cannons, and pulse rifles. This, in turn, slightly reducing the average engagement range by pulling in the maximum damage fall-off distances for a lot of weapons. It prevents overstepping. We've seen that before, and it gives a lot more weapons a chance, and it results in just whole weapon archetypes getting buffs and more. They call it range compression. Each weapon archetype has a new ceiling and floor for damage fall-off, variance within archetype sometimes. So Zoom, what it is, it scales damage fall-off distance, scales aim assist fall-off distance, increases accuracy, reduces recoil. So that first thing they removed, scaling fall-off distance. It has the other 3 though, helps aim assist fall-off, helps accuracy, stability recoil help. So Zoom technically isn't a throwaway, but it's just not going to be used for what it's been used for. Its main purpose, the fall-off. We get into some numbers, and a big note, quote, "We do not expect these values to be final, but we wanted to start the mid-range weapons on a more even footing than they've ever been in the past," which I think that's good. They're staying true to the formula on how damage fall-off works for a different weapon class, so handheld weapons like a hand cannon experience damage fall-off sooner. Marksman-style weapons more gradually. They keep their damage. But these differences should feel less extreme. They have fine-tuned exotics, some specials, with the intention of keeping them near where they are in the live game, not giving them big buffs or nerfs with this process. So, decoupling range fall-off from Zoom. There's now a fixed ADS damage fall-off scaler to all weapons with damage fall-off. We have the old base Zoom, and then there are some changes that are bold. So here's what's cool and how I read it. Let's take the hand cannon. Historically, a 1.4 times Zoom, 1.4 scaler. It's changed to a 1.5. Give or take almost, it's basically rangefinder what they gave them inherently with that rangefinder fall-off scaler. So a type of balance, which is cool. It means all of them are going to reach out a little bit more. Auto rifles, scary. They changed from a 1.6 to a 1.7. ARs are about to be in the meta. Can almost guarantee that. So pulses, sidearms, SMGs, bows, scouts, all pretty much stayed the same, except for high impact pulses. 1.8 changed to 1.7, and I read that as a nerf, but we do have another chart to go over. Overall, these changes, quote, allowing players who invest into the range stat to offset some of the reduction caused by the loss of higher than average Zoom. A very true statement. Range as a stat is much more easily acquired in most weapons than Zoom is. I'll talk about that later in a video. So far, what I get from this, the range stat, the pure range stat, no fall off from external sources like Zoom, is more important than ever. Way more important than ever, because even though this mid-range is compressed, more range is more range within that space, and it's important, period. They have a rebalance of other archetypes. Rebalance the base damage fall-off on several weapon archetypes to account for the new ADS fall-off scalar values for ADS. So sidearms, increased at 100 range by 1.2. SMGs, increased at 0 range by 1.3. Increased at 100 range by 0.8. Auto rifles, increased at 100 range by 2.5. Massive, guys, massive. Aggressive hand cannons, decreased at 100 range by 1.0. Pulse rifles, increased at 100 range by 0.5. So we have a chart here that has rangefinder pre and post season 22 here. And look at hand cannons, 35 meters with rangefinder, 38.5 That's that rangefinder zoom. Now, simply, Season 22, it's 37.5. In the current Sandbox, rangefinder is a huge help. And kind of going into what I said earlier, right now without rangefinder, it's 35. In Season 22, it's 37.5. So it's an overall buff to hand cannons. And the best part, you don't need rangefinder now. You just need range, the pure range stat. Pulse rifles stay checked at 39.95. Currently, they're 39.1. Auto rifles at 100 range can get up to 39.5. Huge for auto rifles. SMGs at 100 range, still good. Like a 100 range Shire's Wrath. Aggressive hand cannons are now the most range you can get outside of a bow or a scout, something like that. Within the mid-range, 40.5 meters at 100, so Igneous Hammer's coming back. There's a ton that can hit 100 range. Scouts, auto rifles, hand cannons are in play way more than they were before this. That's for sure. Hand cannons, I believe, are going to get into that competitive category. They're going to do well. Pulse rifles are a toss-up because I don't know what to think about them because they should feel largely unchanged as far as that feel within their distance, mid-range, but the outlier is usually higher than normal base zoom. They can just simply outrange things. They're not going to have that anymore. We have special weapons. Fusion rifles are nerfed. Small range damage nerf. The base zoom is 1.3 from 1.5. Sidearms SMG pellet slugs look to be competing. Custom-tuned exotics Ace of Spades. It's a nerf in the new Sandbox, kinda. Well, I'm gonna have to see how it feels, because Memento Mori previously had a 10% damage fall-off range penalty. It's been increased to 15%. Ace has a really high base stat, so it should feel kinda normal. Devil's Ruin, the laser beam had a 20% fall-off bonus, but now has a 10% nerf, so a big nerf to it. Hunter's Trance on Revision 0, a 4.5 time ADS damage fall-off scalar. Last Word has a 1.1 times ADS damage fall-off scalar. Okay. Crimson got nerfed, so Crimson has a 1.3 ADS damage fall-off scalar. Previously had that intrinsic 5% damage fall-off penalty, so that was removed. So that's a nerf. Vex nerfed. Forerunner looks like a buff. Ariana's Vow looks like a buff as far as range. Weapon archetypes, hand cannon overall. They increase the reload speed stat at 0 by 15%. So high impacts, aggressives, Igneous Hammer, they're going to have a lot more pop in the reload. And just any hand cannon in general, because it's 15% at 0, it does scale up as the reload gets higher. So they should all feel a little bit faster. And PvE damage, 20% increase versus minors, 75% against majors. So exotic hand cannons are looking pretty good. Heavy burst hand cannon, Morden's Law is coming back as a 2 burst. Bows. Reduce the minimum reload animation duration from 0.5 seconds to 0.3. So when you applied reload scalars, it's still going to have an effect. For lightweight bows, they equalized the full draw projectile velocity with precision bows, SMGs, aggressives. They fixed the RPM stat display, sidearms. So this is interesting. In playtesting, it was kind of outperforming. So they reduced the base damage from 32 to 30. They noticed that once they did all those range changes. So that's probably a good call. The BXR Battler gets his 20 zoom back. 2 times zoom. The Comedian Shotgun, the impact stat was corrected. And a big one for fusions. Even though they're getting nerfed, they fixed an issue where Adept Masterwork and enhanced intrinsic perks were decreasing the damage dealt by fusions when the charge time stat was changed. So that's overall a good thing for them. The heavy wave GLs, I never really use them, but the size of damage of the self-damage AoE is now reduced. That way you don't take yourself out. There's a lot of sword changes, too many to go over, but they got better. They might get their own video once the changes are live. Exotic weapons, so the wait is over. The Monte Carlo got the catalyst that was mechanically complex. It now goes stab, and it looks like you get that when the Markov chain times 5 is up, and you can do big melee damage. Maybe Atheros' Embrace, probably have a lot of fun with it. Quicksilver Storm, they fixed an issue where the ammo wasn't loading correctly. It took too long for the reload animation. That's good. We had to do a weird reload cancel. Dead Man's Tail, the displayed impact stat was incorrect. Cosmetic only, they changed it. Two-tailed Fox. So this is pretty cool. They reworked the catalyst for the third tail. They changed it to fire the third rocket following the second rocket instead of at the same time. So it goes boom, 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 and not one, then double. 3-shot burst volley. Vergless Curve, the bow, the stasis one. If Whisper of Fissures gets the kill, it does not count for Hail Barrage stack. So that was an issue they fixed. They also buffed the weapon's performance in the Crucible when using Hail Barrage. Whisper of Fissure detonations now generate Hail Barrage stacks if stasis crystals was created by the weapon. Shiver Quiver now activates when slowing enemies. They increase the slow stacks from 40 to 60 when hitting players directly with the Hail Barrage arrows. So if 2 of those arrows hit the same player, it will freeze them. Monarch. It's finally happening. Reduce the draw time from 684 milliseconds to 612. Reduce body shot damage from 100 to 85. Increase the crit multiplier from 1.5 to 1.6. So it was doing 150 before, it now does 136. They changed the poison damage over time effect. They reduced the duration of that poison from 3 seconds to 1.75, and now damages for 6 when it poisons you, not 8. And the poison damage was increased in PvE by 50%, so it gets even better probably for the Overload Monarch in PvE, but in the Crucible, this is a big change for it. It's going to be a lot better to play against. Vex, it's been on the down low. There's been a lot of buffs to auto rifles that it received the benefits from those. So again, after they made these changes, they looked back, Vex was probably outperforming. They reduced the RPM from 390 to 360, which matches the high impact auto class. In PvE, they increased the damage to compensate. They increased the damage against minors and majors by 25%. Tommy's Matchbook, we have the same end result, but front loads a lot more Scorch. The updated Scorch value was previously 14 plus 7 with Embers, now 15 plus 5. Touch of Malice. They decreased the self-damage from the final round from 10 to 7, and the final round damage can no longer kill you. They increased the health rewarded by the Touch of Mercy perk from 30 to 75. They increased the final round damage in PvE by 20%, and the setup kind of works like Unrelenting. Guardians and major combatants give more points towards activation, and we increase the time allowed between kills. The Ball of Darkness now appropriately deals arc damage and will blind combatants and stun unstoppable champions. So huge change for Touch of Malice. That's a lot of health back from its other perk. It doesn't kill you anymore. The Blight is arc damage. There's a lot to like here. Malfeasance. They fixed an issue where the Vorpal Weapon Catalyst wasn't displaying the status buff text. Cloud Strike. The day is here. We knew it was coming. They reduced the lethal kill distance of the Lightning Strike against players, and I think it's like halved. It was like 6, now it's 3. Wicked Implement. This is really cool. They originally took a conservative approach. It is a primary weapon. You can slow targets, especially in the Crucible. They're giving its intrinsic perk more uptime and making it easier to keep active. They also improve the utility by providing more opportunities to generate stasis shards with Headstone added to the catalyst. And the ability to create tracking shards from destroying stasis crystals, you can keep your full mag, your powered melee up a lot. So the timing window for creeping attrition has been increased from 3.5 seconds to 4.5. You can now also activate Tilting Harvest by destroying stasis crystals, and the exotic catalyst now has Headstone. This thing is going to be awesome. Bipod. They reduced the damage penalty from 40% to 25%. Envious Assassin. So this is cool. It is a strong perk. There's no longer a time limit after kills within which you must activate the perk or get another kill. The perk now activates even if the magazine is overflowed. It's going to stop activating once you hit the maximum size of 2.5 mag or greater. An enhanced Envious Assassin now provides fractionally more ammo per kill, instead of a longer window of time after a kill. So it's gonna be like super overflow. Under over, very interesting. Now provides bonus body shot damage against Woven Mail, increases the bonus damage against combatants' shields, and deals significantly increased damage to enemies who are enhanced by Dark Cabal overshields, in addition to enemies shielded by Lucent Moths. So think about the Scout, Kinetic Tremors under over. Under Pressure, it's getting a nerf. They've reduced the maximum accuracy bonus that can be granted. The Scalar from 0.5 to 0.75. Shoot to Loot no longer triggers the reload when shooting a special brick that could have been picked up while also having an overflowed weapon. Explosive damage now interacts with Orbs of Power. Shoot to Loot Kinetic Tremors just got a lot better. That's going to be awesome. Valiant Charge. Perk now deactivates after the initial sword swing. Ambush no longer deactivates from healing, fall damage, or being shot by allies. Explosive Light fixed a bug where the enhanced version of the perk was granting 2 stacks on the initial orb pickup, so I guess there was a bug. Chill Clip nerf. Reduce the slow stacks from 60 to 40. Wolfpack rounds no longer trigger the perk. Then a big one, we have crafting. I do all mine at Shurochi, and they say that's not ideal. They're boosting activity completion progression across several activity types: Crucible, Trials, Dares, Wellspring, Gambit, Platinum score completions of Legend or Master Lost sectors, while being solo. Weapon leveling through completing activities should see a large overall increase in efficacy, not just limited to the specific activity types we're explicitly modifying for Season 22. So they've now added the capability to directly increase a weapon's level through currency expenditure. Crafted and enhanced weapons will receive a new slot, and you can spend Glimmer and enhancement cores to boost the level of the weapon. There's no cap on how far you can go to level it up, but the cost of boosting will increase relative to the level of the weapon. And in Season 22, resonant and harmonic alloys are being depreciated, no longer a required material. They're planning on removing them entirely from the game at some point in the future, but until then, your remaining materials will be available to be exchanged for Glimmer at Rahul in the Tower, Huge shakeup. Crafting got a whole lot easier and a whole lot better. And then finally, the Neomuna weapon pattern acquisition. In Season 22, the weekly Pinnacle story for Neomuna will provide a guaranteed Neomuna weapon pattern. Only for the first time it's completed each week. They upped the drop chances of D-Site Neomuna weapons from the vendor, and it's retroactive if you've already claimed the vendor upgrade. The Throne World vendor, that Ingram upgrade is also going to receive the same behavior. It's going to be retroactive. And they also say Season 22 is also going to include a bug fix in the underlying Deep-Site drop system that manifested from the major overhaul they did in Lightfall. And the bug could decrease the Deep-Site drop rate as you near the completion of a pattern set. So that's not good. That sucks. Although the Deep-Site bug on its own would have normally have a low impact on the Deep-Site behavior, the problem was exacerbated when coupled with the lack of deterministic Deep-Site sources. That sucks. Well, I'm glad they fixed it, and they're just changing the entire system. These are a lot of changes. There's quality of life, there's buffs, there's nerfs, there's a huge sandbox shift. Then with all the things that Joe talked about in the Twitter video that he did, things are looking okay. We just need them in the game, and all of this looks really good to me. Next video is going to be about that mid-range shakeup, where that really came from, and some things to look for. And I have a couple other video ideas, but let's talk about this down below. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am Cool Guy.